Hey guys, this is Pablo from DMAR Shoe Repair. Welcome back to another project. Today we have a beautiful pair of Meermin blue shell Cordovan boots. Unfortunately, we got a broken toe on this guy, so we're going to take them apart and resole them better than you. Alright, let's take these babies apart. These are in very good shape, but unfortunately the toe broke on them. So I'm going to rip them apart, do a custom resole job, and these are actually going to be on display at boot camp in Brooklyn, New York at our booth. So if you're not going, I highly recommend you get some tickets and go October 12th and 13th in Brooklyn. So we have a 2-layer leather heel stack, which is always a good sign for good quality. Alright guys, so before I peel the sole off, I just want to talk about why this toe broke. And my theory is that the stitching is so tight and the stitches are so close together that I think the needle and the awl on the outsole stitcher almost cut the rubber when it was stitching it, so it was weakened in the factory. So having a very tight stitch density is aesthetically pleasing and it shows good craftsmanship, but I have seen it quite a few times with rubber soled boots where the toe does break like this. That's very unfortunate because these boots have not been worn a lot and they're beautiful shell Cordovan boots. So that's my theory behind why this happens. So if you guys have any comments or theories of your own, let me know. Alright, so we have the inside of the boot here. I just took the sole off. There is no leather midsole, just a single Meermin proprietary lug sole. They call this the Ultra Comfort System, and I think it has to do with the foam that they put in the ball of the foot, because I do find these boots extremely comfortable. So we have foam in the forefront filler, and then we have nice cork in the back. I'm going to use only cork in the filler when I replace it. I like a more natural product, and I like that your foot can mold the cork over time, as well as a leather midsole. So this insole also has a very nice layer of foam, so that must be part of the Ultra Comfort System that Meermin talks about. So this foam to me is more than enough, so I'd rather have cork in the filler. If you can see inside there, I just driven these threaded nails that were holding the heel block back out through the footbed. And every time you do a repair, you want to make sure you pull out all the old nails. Okay, so I'm going to clean out the old filler, and then I'm going to have to remove the original welt, because going back to my theory, the stitch is so small and the stitch count is so tight that I'll never be able to recreate that on my sewing machine. And I think that's one of the reasons the rubber broke. So I'm going to replace the welt, and when I stitch the new welt and sole, I'll have a slightly longer stitch on that, and hopefully that won't ever happen again. So it's very important to clean out this cavity here. If I leave any old remnants, they could create little bumps when I insert new filler. So always take your time to make sure you're cleaning out this cavity properly. Well, that worked out very well. Could have been a very long night if I had to pick all those stitches one by one with my knife. So we have a broken down boot with a footbed, a shank, gemming, and the uppers remaining. So I'm going to re-welt these with new split welts in a natural color. And then from there, I'm going to build up with some more components. And one thing I want to do now that the welts are off is give these a nice little conditioning. And again, these are shell Cordovan. I'm not a leather expert, but this is a very prized, rare leather. It doesn't actually come from a cow, it comes from a horse in the hindquarters, and it's an actual membrane. It's not a full grain hide. So obviously I'm in a lot of different shoe and boot groups on Facebook and social media, and I've heard from some, leather experts that Creme Universelle from Saphir is a really good product to use on shell Cordovan. So that's what I'm going to use on this pair or on this boot. So ideally you want your conditioner to sit on your shell overnight before you buff, but I'm going to just apply this now and give it maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I'll give it a buff. And then when you buff and you create heat and friction, that's going to pull out the natural oils in the shell and give it a beautiful shine and patina. And the good thing about shell is it's very, very low maintenance. No polishing, just condition every once in a while. Even just buffing and getting those oils out, it's almost like a self-repair type of leather. And I think that's one of the reasons people covet it so much. It's so beautiful and long-lasting and durable. And another cool little fact is that shell doesn't crease. It actually creates rolls and folds at the flex point there. So if you're ever wondering if the pair you're going to buy, if it's like a used pair, is real shell or not, look at the vamp. And if it's creasing, it's not. If it's rolling or folding, it is. So we'll let that dry for a bit, and in the meantime, we'll get the welts ready for our re-welting process. All right, so the next stage in the process is to hand sew this leather welt onto the boot. And what I put on before was just like a leather dressing, just to put a bit of a finish on this, because if I just left it raw, then it'd be much more, water absorbing. So just put a nice little sealant, a little coat to keep it natural. And I'm going to get a jerk needle, which is this needle here, and it has a little hook on the tip, and that's going to grab my thread like so, and allow me to pull the thread through the holes with the needle and make knots. So this welt becomes very strongly secured to the boot, and then once I glue the outsole on, we'll have completed the Goodyear welt construction. Alright guys, so I'm just taking a quick pause from the welting process just to show you how it's coming along. And this is obviously the most time-consuming, grueling process, stitch by stitch, hand by hand. Takes a lot of time. And I'm actually going to skip from this point in the boot to this point in the boot where it's ready for stitching, and just to make the video go by a bit quicker on our end. So I'm just going to explain what the next steps would have been. As I explained the first time, we had a combination of foam and cork as our filler. So I'm going to use only cork. It's what I prefer to use. It's more comfortable in my opinion. It's moldable and it's a more natural product, as cork comes from trees. From that stage, I would glue on a leather midsole. And fun fact, I just got these leather midsoles in. I found a new supplier in Montreal who specializes in leather soles, leather heels. He actually supplies some really cool big boot brands like Viberg. So these leather midsoles, they actually are the exact same leather as the leather heel bases. So when I do a nice natural finish, there's no variances in the leather color or look. So as cobblers or shoemakers, we're always trying to find ways to get an advantage and better ourselves and improve our finishes, make things as aesthetically possible. So I'm excited to try these new midsoles. Then after the midsole would have been glued on, I would have went ahead and glued on this green Dr. Sol Supergrip full sole. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Sol is a Taiwanese brand. They have really exploded on the shoe and boot making market. They make really classic vintage rubbers that are extremely high quality and super durable. So I started importing my Dr. Sol straight from Taiwan. It's quite costly to do so, so that's why the cost on a resole is more expensive than a Vibram sole. But they're super cool, really heritage style, so it really goes well with a boot recraft. So again, we're going to just skip these next couple of steps and hop into the sole stitching. All right, so this is our old hand groover. She doesn't quite cut like she used to, but it's good enough to get a even channel kind of guide around the sole, and then I'll hop onto my machine with my carbide cutter and then put a deeper channel. So what we want to do is we want to bury our stitches so they last longer and they're not immediately walked on. Alright, so you guys, I was making some custom paracord laces. These are a very cool green color that matches the soles pretty bang on. I use 9-strand paracord, which is super strong, and I try to match the eglets to the hardware on the shoes. So this is more or less an antique brass, and these eglets are antique brass as well. So let's pop these beautiful new laces in. And I also want to mention that the reason I changed the eyelets on the boot is because the original ones were just too small for my tips to get through. So I wanted to swap those out. There's a very slight difference between the original ones and the ones I put in. So the boot kind of still keeps its, sleek aesthetic. Alright, so we're getting closer to the end of the job, and I'm just waiting for the glue to dry on this heel before I hammer it back on. And this is what we call a washer heel. So there's little metal washers inside of these holes. So once the heel gets glued on, I'm going to grab some rubber heel nails, as they're called, and then secure the rubber top lift to the heel base. And with this nailing process, this heel will never come off. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining again on another repair process. This is my first time doing a video on Meermin boots, and they are quite beautiful. Leather footbeds, Goodyear welted. They don't skimp out on their components or their pieces, so I highly recommend this brand out of beautiful Mallorca, Spain. As you can see, we did a full custom resole, new split welts, leather midsoles, green Dr. Sole full soles, leather heel stacks, and Dr. Sole heels. Shined up the leather and made them look all beautiful. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the next project.